build something that people want first. Find and address a pain point that maybe best you yourself have experienced, and then solve that pain point and discover the technology on the way of solving and addressing that pain point. Rather than thinking of gimmicky tech, try with addressing a commercial need or individual need or a pain point, an issue, a friction, and try to bring down that friction. The other company's profit margin is your entry point. Now, if something is hard to do and another company makes money out of it, maybe that's where you can get in and capture that friction and solve for that friction, and that's your market.
What's going on, everybody? JT here, and I am with Nate Kaiser. Nate Kaiser is the appointed executive director of ALGODAO, a community-owned and driven DAO, incubator, launchpad, and innovation pool built on and for Algorand. How you doing, Nathan?
I'm good. Thanks, JT. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. So let's start off with a very basic question. What is ALGODAO?
Actually, we try to make that simple because the bells and whistles make that a long answer, and I think you want to have an easy answer. We're basically a launch pad, so we're the primary market for projects built on ALGODAO. We're that very simple answer, because a bit more complicated is that we also, before something launches, provide incubator services. So the real truth is we're an incubator services DAO, and then we're a launch pad, and then we also have an ecosystem fund at the very end. So there's these three parts. That's ALGODAO.
Fantastic. So I know a lot about the Launchpad, but I actually don't know too much about how Incubator Services work. So before we talk about the Launchpad and the Innovation Index and so forth, what do the Incubation Services look like from ALGODAO for these various projects that want to launch on it?
You're totally right. I think the reason why you're not able to capture it right away is because incubation services is a nice buzzword. In reality, it's very fuzzy. It's a whole slew of services that are not even related one to each other. So that's from legal services provided by law firms, not by ALGODAO, to marketing services provided by marketing companies, or maybe individuals in and around the ALGODAO. That can be influencers that we know, that we don't know, but can know through third parties, to even company building services and obviously coding and development, where maybe we can help a little bit with the people in and around the ALGODAO, or maybe we can at least give the projects that need coding and developer assistance, we can give mattresses and people to contact. So incubation services actually means, in a very broad stroke, that will help companies to fix the shortcomings they have. Sometimes people at the ALGODAO can help directly. Though probably in most of the cases, it means referring the projects to people we trust, and companies in trust, and other organizations we trust. That's incubation services.
One real question before we get onto ALGODAO is, why did you decide to build on Algorand versus all of the other L1s? I know that, you yourself are coming out of the Cardano community, so it's a real interesting switch over to the Algorand ecosystem. So I'm just curious on, what the desire was there to build on Algorand.
Well, there's much to be said. Probably entire books have either already been written or should be written about the different L1s and the fact that there is not just one rule that rules them all. So I'm a big believer in thinking that there's a world of many chains, and different chains for different purposes. And it's not out there yet, like who is going to win for what use case, because we're still in early days. I just want to say that at the very beginning. So why Algorand is maybe an easier question, is because it works. It works out of the box. And I've been watching Algorand for quite a while, or have been watching Algorand for quite a while. And I think their team that's broadly, by definition, international, with the foundation being out in Singapore, with a lot of the tech happening out of free around the, what we could call the MIT universe, I think that has always been a good mix and a good start. Also, the fact that many L1s, not all of them, but many L1s try to shy away from the US, while Algorand has embraced the US as a jurisdiction. Also, with regard to its initial early backers, I thought that was always an interesting mix, and that's why.
Fantastic. I appreciate that answer. So, how does the Launchpad work? So, obviously, a lot of people understand, what Launchpads are, but if you could give us a quick rundown on a user's perspective, so how somebody like me or just a random watcher of this video could use AlgoDAO to, get in on these projects that launch through AlgoDAO, and then if you could give it to me from the perspective of a project that might want to go through AlgoDAO to launch their project.
So the user perspective, I think the description is easier than the actual process. We've seen a lot in Web3. Some things look easier when they're being said, but when you're actually in front of a computer and a ledger, and there's like this password and that password, becomes a bit less straightforward. So that being said, basically from a user perspective, when there is a project that's being launched, usually best is if the user, so that hypothetical user, already has ALGO as a token, which gives him let's say, an advantaged position in that project that's being launched. So if you start from zero and you don't have any ADAO, you can't join. You can join the public launch. So you need, let's call it, some ADAO in order to join. And there is a tiered system that's fairly complicated, but also very well balanced, to say that people or users, let's call them users again, who have more ADAO enjoy a higher advantage to then get in on a launch of a project. And then when the project launches, there are several steps and several rounds that slowly launch these tokens. The smart contract does that in several steps. So if maybe in the first round you have not been allocated any of that project tokens, then hopefully in the second round you will. That's very simplified the user experience. Now you're asking for the projects. That's obviously a very different route, and one that takes a lot longer. Now the usual project launches, they usually last. They can last a day or two, or shorter, or a bit longer. But it's a matter of hours and few days, if any. For the project, it's much different. It's more a road that is traveled over months. And not few months, but usually many months. So projects come to us, or we come to projects that we hear about, that we think have potential for a launch. And then it starts usually with a Telegram message or emails, and so where we get a feel of, we at ALGODAO get a feel at where the project's at. We then very quickly, in a relatively systematic way, send out due diligence forms. We have a smaller one, and then we have a more extended one, more elaborate one. And these due diligence forms are filled out by the projects. And basically what the due diligence forms achieve is it provides at the end a somewhat simple and straightforward gap analysis to say, this project is lacking this, and that. And then a bit more tedious work begins, where we try to work with the projects and say, are the gaps too large? So that maybe in that sense we cannot yet work with you because they're simply too large for us, and you should go back to drawing board or to do your homework, and then come back in 6 months. Or we say the gaps are big, but we can try to help you bridge and fill these gaps. And then we work, as I had earlier said about the incubation services, we work with third parties, and obviously also provide our own advice to say, this is how we fill this gap, or go to these guys and girls to fill another gap, and try to get them what we call launch ready, or ready for launch. And that's the bit longer road. Again, it's a minimum a minimum of several months at least. Yeah. And then
Fantastic.
obviously at the outcome of this, they are launch ready and then launch. No, that's the result. Yeah.
Yep, that's the goal for sure. You mentioned it a little bit, but could you speak on the utility of the two tokens that are on ALGODAO? So there's the ALGODAO token itself, the ADAO token, and then the Sigma token that users are rewarded with as they stake their ADAO on the platform.
You almost said it yourself. Half of it, you already said it yourself. So that's exactly how it works. The ADAO token, the first token, is, as I had said earlier, a utility token that acts as largely as an entry ticket for participating at launches. That's the utility number one. The second one is we obviously have fun little events from time to time where ADAO tokens are being staked, and then there's little rewards and fun games and riddles, obviously. And maybe the third utility is governance, purely speaking, which is where we're at a very early stage, where we will increasingly, we're at the very beginning here, have votings on issues, whether that's internal governance, whether that's on token launches, various issues that will come up over time. And in a later phase, we will thus invite the ADAO tokens holders to help take a decision on certain aspects of the entire ALGODAO ecosystem. So that's the three utility parts of the ADAO token. And then thank you for stating it. I can see you're quite familiar with our system. I love it, JT. Thanks a lot. When you stake ADAO, the reward is actually not more ADAO, as is often the case, but it's the Sigma token. And the Sigma token acts is quite de facto a bit of a portfolio representative token of projects that have previously and will in the future launch on ALGODAO. So you can say that it gives an exposure to the Sigma token holders to the overall development of the ALGODAO ecosystem. And because we aim to be the primary market, and we probably are the primary market, I guess, on Algorand. I'm not sure if that statement is correct, but let's say we clearly aim to be the primary market on Algorand. So that means that the Sigma token is also a very rough exposure to the overall Algorand system, of course, with a bit more of leverage and upside than just holding ALGODAO itself. Yeah, I hope that can answer your question, JT.
Yeah, it does. It's very interesting because, as you mentioned, the Sigma token is essentially more of like an index of all of the projects that launch on ALGODAO, and I'm not sure if this is being done anywhere else in the system, in the ecosystem, as you just mentioned. Are there any, legal hurdles or regulations that ALGODAO needed to jump through in order to launch an innovation index type of token? What are the? Do you know what the legal framework is for that?
Well, we're based out of Panama, so we do have lawyers involved, and they pronounce themselves on this. So it's a very the legal aspects around tokens is a minefield at best. No, when it's a minefield with a global, it's at worst. So it's all very jurisdictional. So in that question, when you ask what is a token for whom, when, and where, you need to look at where the person is that buys tokens or sells tokens, and then you have Panama as the company that is actually ALGODAO, and so it's a multi-piece puzzle between buyer, seller, issuer, ALGODAO, which actually we are as a decentralized as a DAO. We don't really have, or we absolutely don't have custody of any of the tokens involved. It's all non-custodial. So there's a lot of pieces for the legality of that token universe. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a absolutely correct way to describe it. A minefield is totally accurate. It doesn't matter where you are. It's all across the world. It's the legal regulations of these tokens are so just everywhere, really. Some countries there's little to no regulation. Other countries it's way too over-regulated. There's no uniform idea of what's going on. So I definitely feel for that explanation. Another question going back to the Sigma token: when will the Sigma token officially launch? Because for those staking on the platform, they're still not able to claim their Sigma. When will that ability to claim come back out?
I don't think we have a fixed time frame. I'm just thinking we don't have a fixed time frame for this yet. We're still in a roll phase, but it's definitely a fair and legitimate question, and we will get back to the community when we see that we can start kicking this off.
Yeah, I mean it is a fair assessment that it would probably be after you at least launch the first project or two on ALGODAO, because it is an index token. So, I mean, currently, what is there to index if the 3 projects that you're launching are still, prior to their IDO?
Well, we have launched bits and pieces, but yeah, we need to have something to fill the basket or the index. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
speaking of material, yeah.
Speaking of bits and pieces, ALGODAO recently had the reverse hackathon offering, or RHO. Could you explain a little bit on what that is and how it works?
That is I think that's exactly one of these questions that please don't remove this, don't edit this from the interview with JT. But the RHO, as we call it, is a complicated animal. But then again, reverse hackathons have been around for a while. So basically, we asked the community to pre-finance what then is a hackathon, and then teams participate, enjoy the revenue as if they win a hackathon, and then again those who pre-finance the hackathon get again tokens in the projects that come out of the hackathon. So it's a bit of a machine that feeds on itself. We continue to have many discussions on the row, because the row also had several incarnations, and this is only the very first one. We plan for continuous development of row in more instances, also more offline. Right now it's only online, but we're planning on offline experiences that will gather teams in a very classic way, a classic hackathon way. And we'll build the row out as it comes. What you're seeing right now is I would literally call it a test pilot, just to test the waters, because we want to see how the community reacts, what they're interested in, what they like, what they don't like, and then we'll continue to shape that row. But what the community, what you're seeing right now, is a fraction of what we have in mind at a later time and date. It's also true that in the current market conditions, we have less appetite overall in the ecosystem. That's crypto-wide, and then also on the Algorand ecosystem specifically. So we're probably not going to do a row hackathon offline with a big hall and 5,000 people in it, and people lining up outside for hamburgers and tickets and beer. But this is something that we're planning for the future. It might not happen in 2022.
Fantastic. You mentioned some hamburgers, and I am getting a little hungry myself, but it's only 8:30 in the morning for me, so I don't know if that's what we're going to have for breakfast. I want to talk about some of the projects that you have launching, or ALGODAO. I don't want to say you particularly, because you're not, you don't run ALGODAO. It's a DAO. But I want to talk about some of the projects that ALGODAO has launching. We've got Brightside, Darkside, Curl. Can you mention anything about those projects, and maybe why ALGODAO decided to go with those 3 to start the Launchpad off with?
Well, I think that's fairly straightforward. It's the 3 projects that we felt out of our pipeline, or from our pipeline, that were ready to launch. It's if something is ready to launch, I think we'll launch it, unless the project itself, and we've had that too, says we're ready to launch, but we don't want to do it yet because the marketing conditions are not right, and that's also totally normal and understandable. So the 3 projects, Curl, Brightside, and Darkside, they're effectively the 3 projects that were ready and willing to launch. Yeah, in that very, very cold summer that we had.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that at least Brightside is launching on the Milkomeda EVM Algorand A1 rollup. Are the other 2 as well, launching on that as well? Are they all EVM-based applications building on Algorand and Milkomeda, or is it just Brightside?
Joker. I wouldn't even know. I'm not
Fair enough.
following each project that early or that close. It's also, I'm not in that sense, as you pointed out, the guy that tries to sell Brightside afterwards. No, we're in the business of launching, and we wanna control that process, but not what every single project does. It's a bit similar to NASDAQ. If you run NASDAQ, you can't run after all the stocks listed on NASDAQ because they do Tesla and I don't know, pharmaceuticals. But if you run NASDAQ, you can't get into the depth of what the pharmaceutical companies do.
Yeah. That makes sense. So, I know ALGODAO also launched some NFTs. I'm not really too sure. I'm not big in the NFT world, so I'm not really sure, what these consist of. But could you talk a little bit about the function of the NFTs?
Well, there's different NFTs, and we have different NFTs, and they have different functions, serve different objectives. So I think one is that in the past we used NFTs as sort of pre-sold access rights to projects or indirectly to projects. That was the very early use of NFTs. So it was sort of a ticket for a ticket or a voucher for a voucher, maybe something like that. Now, in the follow-up, and again, we're talking about the summer, we were also thinking of how to engage with our community and engage their interest on what's going on. And so we use NFTs also as a way, or you can call it a token, pun intended, to engage with our community and see what's going on and interact with them. Because one thing I think in the overall Web3 space is that we can't just say like, oh my God, things are a bit slower and it's cold and the crypto winter is cold. Let's just go home and wait it out. No, at ALGODAO, what we do is we actively think about what can we do to keep things going and have a mutual interest, which creates then again ideas and also motivates projects not give up but keep going, motivates developers to start building stuff, because eventually if nobody builds projects, we're out of business. So we want people to build. We're asking everybody, how can you help ALGODAO build projects? Yeah.
Fantastic. It is a builder's market, but it is hard to do so. I mean, I totally feel for some of the projects that might be having a difficult time through this crypto winter. That actually leads me to a more vague but high-level question that has really nothing to do with ALGODAO. But what would you say to people that are looking to build in the crypto market? Given the current context of the global economy, the crypto economy, they might have a hard time raising the money they need, whether it be from VCs or whether it be on a token generation event. So what would you say to some of these builders out there that might be on the sidelines, but want to enter the space, but might be waiting it out?
That's a tricky one. And obviously, this entire YouTube library is filled with the question. So I think one answer is, and it does not come out of crypto, is build something that people want first. Find address a pain point that maybe best you yourself have experienced, and then solve that pain point and discover the technology on the way of solving and addressing that pain point, rather than thinking of gimmicky tech and then think like, oh, what could I build with a tech? So try with addressing a commercial need or individual need or a pain point, an issue, a friction, and try to bring down that friction. So as other people, and I think, I'm not sure if that was Steve Jobs or Peter Thiel or one of these guys said, or maybe it was Bezos from Amazon, no, the other company's profit margin is your entry point. No, if something is hard to do and another company makes money out of it, maybe that's where you can get in and capture that friction and solve for that friction, and that's your market. So go with addressing a need first, fix a problem first, and then crypto may have the tech for it. But don't start with the tech first. This may be a very rough pointer for these people.
I thought that was a beautiful answer, honestly. Some very, very good advice. Is there anything else that we haven't discussed today that you want to bring up to my audience, about ALGODAO or anything else relative to the project?
I think we did a good first tour. I do want to encourage UJT to do a great job, and we're trying at ALGODAO, trying to do a good job. Let's stay in the game. Let's keep building. Let's keep interacting and see where things come from there. Keep going, sort of like the battery bunny, and we'll see what the end of 2022 brings, and take it from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. This was fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on the show, Nathan.
Hey, thanks a lot. It was great having me. Yeah, thanks.